Hello and welcome back. Let's continue our discussion on the concept of environmental scanning. Sometimes environmental scanning is also referred to as environmental analysis and diagnosis. So in the last few sessions, we have been discussing the concept of environmental scanning, and I'm sure by now you're familiar with the concept. But let me quickly recall for your benefit what environmental scanning is. Environmental scanning is a process of gathering information about the events, trends, and all the happenings in the business environment that impacts the performance, growth, and prospects of a business organization. So basically, environmental analysis and diagnosis is a process of gathering insights about internal and external environment of an organization in which it operates. Environmental scanning is a process of collecting information about those factors and forces that affects the performance of a business organization. So by analyzing these factors and forces, a business organization is in a position to take proper strategic decisions that can put the company in a position which is way ahead of its competitor, and therefore environmental scanning is one of the important prerequisites for decision making process in any business organization. So in today's session we would be focusing more on the objectives of environmental scanning. In what ways environmental scanning is beneficial, helpful for the business organization, and what are its goals. So this should be the focus of our discussion in today's session. So I have listed out here, I've made a list of various objectives of environmental scanning. So let us go through these objectives one by one. The first one is identification of SWOT. First, you need to understand what exactly SWOT is, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with the term SWOT. SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So when we say environmental scanning is a process of gathering information, it is not just gathering information about the external environment. It's not just collecting information about competitors. It's not just about gathering information about the economic policies, the political environment, the geopolitical impact, the latest technology, the trends, the events. It is also about understanding the internal environment of the organization, right? We always tell this to individuals also, that first you need to do a self evaluation. You need to first understand yourself before you could do something in your life. You need to do a self assessment. You need to figure out what exactly your strengths are, what are your weaknesses. Based on these strengths and weaknesses, you can decide your future course of action. So SWOT analysis will give you an understanding as to what are the areas of improvements that are required and what are the areas in which you are already strong in, right? SWOT analysis is not just applicable for individuals, institutions, it is universally applicable, right? Even for that matter, in a cricket match, whenever a cricket team plays against its opponents, it is very important that the team management, including the coach and the captain, do a SWOT analysis in which they sit down and they identify what are the strengths of the team, whether it is it batting, is it bowling, is it fielding, who are the key players of the team, right? So it's a self evaluation, because this self evaluation is necessary so that you are aware what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and how to use those strengths and how to confine those limitations, right? So SWOT analysis basically is a self-discovery process in which you're trying to figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are. But the point which you have to note down here is, from business perspective, strengths and weaknesses comes from within the organization, whereas opportunities and threats comes from outside the organization, right? So this is extremely crucial. The process of SWOT analysis includes assessment of both internal and external environment of business, which helps a company in identifying its potentials and shortcomings to respond to its competitors. So that's the whole idea, right? Because unless you don't know what your strengths and weaknesses are, then how will you compete with others, right? How will you meet customers' expectations? How will you respond to the technological changes? How will you respond to the government policies and various restrictions imposed by the government? So if you do a proper SWOT analysis, you can get your business ahead of your competitors. I had the opportunity to interact with one of the marketing executives of Suzuki India, and he had given some very good insights as to what their opponents were doing, because Maruti is a well established automobile company. In fact, it is nothing wrong to say that they are one of the market leaders for a very long time. But unfortunately, in the recent past, Maruti has been facing a lot of competition from its opponents. So what the opponents have done recently, that Maruti Suzuki has failed. Its sales are trembling, declining. So what has gone wrong with Maruti Suzuki? So this is where strength, weakness, assessment can help you to realize what is going right or what is going wrong. Right now, in terms of this assessment of Maruti Suzuki was its competitors, you need to understand the business environment has changed, right? India as a country and its demographics has completely evolved over a period of time. There was a time when people used to buy a small car or a hatchback car as one of their first cars, right? Maruti Suzuki Alto, or whether it was Maruti 800, these were perceived to be the first choice of the older generations. But now things have changed, right? In what way things have changed? Now people are buying a car as their first car, which is already an expensive car, which means that people now have more access to money than it used to be decades back. And that's because the demographic environment has changed. The economic environment has changed. So what this means is that the per capita income was totally different 30 years back, 40 years back than what it is now. Now the per capita income of individuals has increased. There are more people who are earning in a family than it used to be. Earlier we had a concept where only one person used to earn in the family, but now the dynamics have changed, right? Husband is working in a family, wife is working in a family, so there is sufficient disposable income. So why should I buy a budget entry level car? I have sufficient money as a family to invest in an expensive car. And that is where Maruti Suzuki is lacking, because a lot of things have changed, but unfortunately Maruti Suzuki is not able to capture the dynamics that have changed, the things that have changed in business environment, and respond to it. And that is where companies like Hyundai and new entrants like Kia Motors are doing extremely well in Indian market. Now let me tell you what is wrong and what is right. First of all, as I mentioned, people have more disposable income now, so they are willing to spend more on their first car itself. And second, the taste and preference has also changed. Now people prefer sports utility vehicle, SUVs and MPVs, bigger cars in comparison with the smaller cars, which was preferred choice of the older generations. And this is where Maruti is lacking. This is where Suzuki is lacking, because Maruti Suzuki is more focused on small cars than big cars. And this is where Maruti Suzuki has completely failed to understand that what is required is not being responded, right? Whereas other brands like Hyundai, other brands like Kia have responded to the changes that have taken place in the business environment, right? They have understood the dynamics have changed. Now people prefer big cars than small cars. People have more disposable income. Unfortunately, Maruti Suzuki is now lacking, and Maruti Suzuki has recently taken a note of this. In fact, it's not that Maruti Suzuki is complicit and it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing, but now Maruti Suzuki has woken up, but it's little too late, right? Because these two brands, Kia and Hyundai have now become market leader in the segment of SUV. So it will take a lot of effort for Maruti to bounce back. But Maruti Suzuki has recently understood that you need to do a revamp because the present generation is perceiving Maruti Suzuki as its dad's brand, right? So Maruti Suzuki is doing a lot of revamping. It has done a brand endorsement with Varun Dhawan, and Varun Dhawan has been roped in as its brand ambassador. So he's a young Bollywood star. So he, with his image, they are trying to portray that Maruti Suzuki has products, it has cars which are more appealing to the younger generation also. It has come up with Nexa, which is an upscale retailing uh, channel. It has also come up with another segment called Maruti Arena, which is basically a customer experience outlet. So Maruti Suzuki is also investing heavily in SUVs now. So Maruti Suzuki has woken up. It has understood that its weakness lies in delivering SUVs and MPVs. This is the segment where it is lacking, and this is where it needs to bounce back. And that is the magic of SWOT analysis. So SWOT analysis shows you the mirror. It tells you where you're lacking and where you need to pull up your socks. It tells you what your strengths are and how to leverage your strengths to fight the competition. What are the opportunities that are available in the market, and what are the threats that you have to combat in the present and in the future. So that's the reason environmental scanning is very instrumental, because by gathering insights about your own institution, your own company, and also by gathering insights from external environment, you are better prepared to respond to the changes that are happening. So therefore, environmental scanning helps you in identification of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Now, point number two, exploit and explore business opportunity. Now, this is very essential because as a business organization, you need to know what are the developments that have taken place in the market recently. Which is that new government policy which is being rolled out, and how is that new government policy going to affect your business? Whether the new policies introduced by the government, will it give you opportunities that you can capitalize on, or is it posing a lot of challenges for your survival? So therefore it can be a combination of both, right? So government policies, as we have already discussed in the preceding classes also, can be both. It can be a challenge or it can be an opportunity. Now let me tell you the story of the digitization of cable television in India. When I was a kid, we used to have the so-called cable wallas, and these cable wallas were individuals, they were small business enterprises, they were sole proprietors who used to provide us the cable television. But in a significant development in the year 2012, the government of India enacted a law to make digitization of cable television mandatory in India. Digitization means all cable TV households would receive digital signals through a set-top box, which most of us are familiar with, because if you want to watch a television, you have a set-top box. Whether you want to have a dish, that is optional, but yes, set-top box is required. So the moment the government made it mandatory that every household should have a set-top box to receive cable television, this is where the floodgate of opportunities was opened for the corporates. Earlier, the cable wallas were individual sole proprietors. Now, if you reflect upon, our cable wallas are big companies, big corporate conglomerates, MNCs, Tata, Reliance, Sun, Videocon. These are some of the big companies that have ventured into this business. So what led to creation of so many companies? The answer is simple. Earlier, there was no opportunity for these companies to venture into cable business, but a simple enactment made by the government opened the doors of opportunities. So you need to keep evaluating the external environment and see how the market is posing you with challenges and opportunities, and try to capitalize on them. So that's the reason continuous scanning of environment is required to figure out how you can explore the opportunities created by the government policies, how you can explore the opportunities created by change in trends, how you can explore the opportunities created by changing lifestyle of consumers. And on the other hand, you need to also figure out what are the challenges posed by the changes that are happening in the business environment. So it's a combination of both that needs to be examined. So therefore, we have little more objectives to go, which we shall discuss in the next session. So I'll see you in the next session. Take care.